So now it's time to move on, and I would like to invite Sharon Attia, social media editor at the New York Times. In this session, Sharon will tell us about the best practices for posting on Instagram and how to create shareable and engaging content that is going to help you to increase the visibility of your work, to amplify your voice, and also to connect with your audience. So thank you and welcome, Sharon.
Thank you so much for having me. You can see my screen, right? I'm sharing. Is perfect. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Today, we're going to talk about Instagram for freelancers. And so you could think of this session as a guide for journalists, editors, photographers on how to be good on Instagram. And I promise you, it's a lot easier than it looks. Just a little bit about me. I'm a freelance photographer currently based in Brooklyn, New York, and I've been a social media editor at the New York Times since 2018. So before we get started, why Instagram? Why should you be on this platform? Why is it important? The easy answer, it's a really powerful way to tell stories and reach a brand new audience. Of Instagram's 1 billion users, 86% live outside the United States, and 70% are younger than 34 years old. That means that's an opportunity to reach a younger global audience who may be encountering your journalism for the very first time. And just a little reminder, I like to tell people, Instagram isn't just a place for memes and well-lit shots of your coffees. It's also a place where people come for their news, which I feel like previously we always thought of Twitter as the news platform and Instagram is sort of the fun pictures, but Instagram has really changed in the last few years and now it very much is a news platform as well. So what should you be doing on Instagram? If you can leave with one really big takeaway, it's that you should be keeping it real and being your authentic self. People want to feel that there's really a human behind the account, and they're looking for accounts that feel personal and have a voice that's informative, trustworthy, approachable, which is precisely what you as journalists can offer. Often the most successful accounts are identity-driven and have a clear point of view. So race, gender, environmental justice, or in the journalistic sense, they have a specific beat or focus on a specific topic or area of expertise. So for example, at the New York Times, the account that I run is NYT Gender. And so we really focus on women and gender issues in the news. What should I be doing on Instagram? So kind of two big buckets, share being one of them. Share your journalism in your feed and stories. We'll talk a little bit about what exactly I mean by share and how you can do that in the most engaging way. And one of those ways, if you have a finished product, a link you want to direct people to, there are ways to link to your work in Instagram. I know, again, like Twitter is obviously more of the clicking through platform, but you can add swipe ups in stories or in your link in bio. And so you can take people off platform to engage with your work. And also offer your followers a behind the scenes look into your process and reporting. People really want to know who you are, what's the person, the journalist behind the byline, and Instagram really is a platform that rewards that behavior. And two, interact. Respond to comments and questions on your posts, respond to DMs and replies to your stories, and also use the native features that Instagram offers, like story, stickers, polls, questions. I really like to tell people it's important not to take people for granted who are taking the time to engage with your work. And also, there's a benefit to you in that Instagram really rewards people who are spending a lot of time on their app. So if you're replying to comments and watching stories, you're actually more likely to reach a new audience or an audience that isn't following you because the app is rewarding active users. So it kind of sends a signal to Instagram, oh, this person really is using this platform. I'm going to boost them on the Explore page. So I've been talking, I said stories and feed. And so just a really quick, what's the difference between the two? So feed is what you're probably typically is more traditionally what we're thinking about when we talk about an Instagram post. It's square or like a 4x5. It could be a photo, a visual, a video. They don't expire. They live on your profile, forever unless you delete them. They usually reach a larger audience, just typically. The interactions are going to be higher. You can edit them. You can edit the captions. You can change, the location. And videos have to be a minute or less. IGTV, I'm not going to touch on, but that's longer form video on Instagram. And then stories, which we're going to get into in a little bit, are the vertical aspect ratios. They're definitely more casual, experimental. They have a more in the moment, I would say, vibe to them. They can't be edited though, which is sometimes a little bit annoying for us like journalist editors who sometimes want to edit our work. You'd have to take it down and redo it if you needed to edit something. And basically it's a way to tell a story in multiple parts. So each slide is going to be no more than 15 seconds. So now we're going to get into best practices for the two. Best practices for posting in feed. There are multiple elements to it. So for your captions, this is a session full of journalists. So, what you always do, which is informative, trustworthy, conversational type of text is really what we're looking for. I feel like maybe a few years ago, people tried to keep the captions really, really short. That's definitely changed. People are doing their line breaks. You can do a couple paragraphs, but also still, you don't want it to be an essay. Like you want to be quick and approachable and grab your audience. Engage. So you should be inviting the audience in if you can. Ask questions in your caption. Create opportunities for that audience to participate and engage with you. But just something to remember: if you are asking people, a call to action, you're asking them a question, make sure that you engage with it back, because the last thing you want is to kind of build this audience that you're trying to build trust with, and then they feel like they're participating and throwing their stories into a void. Links. So you can include a link directly in the caption on Instagram. However, you can, as the cool kids say, drop a link in bio. So you can only have one link in your bio, but rather than swapping it out, a lot of journalists are using free tools like Linktree that will allow you to link to an unlimited number of links. So this is a really good tool if you're constantly trying to share some of your work off platform. Hashtags. Don't spam. Hashtags should be used around very specific or niche topics. I would say events or a certain day are really useful for those because people are really looking for everything that has to do with that day. But content, like hashtags, are a way to filter content, right? And you won't surface if you're using a hashtag that has hundreds of thousands or millions of followers or uses. So it's really important to be specific. And what I like to do is think of ways that the hashtags can organically fit into the caption. So rather than tack them on at the end, 30 hashtags, which feels very spammy, is there a way to organically, use it within the caption, and not for every single word, because it's very hard to read. For these big words where you're trying to get that audience who's interested in that topic to maybe find your post. And location tags. Location tags are actually really, really great to use. And I feel like people sometimes sleep on them. They can signal to your followers where you are. So if you're trying to build an audience that, is very localized or that is connected to the location that you're in, it's a really nice signal that you're actually based and embedded in that region. It also allows your post to be more discoverable. And similar to hashtags, location tags, it's really good to be specific. So for example, if I was posting from New York, rather than posting New York City, I would do Central Park, because if someone were to click on that, it actually would filter into the New York posts as well. Don't obsess over the grid. This sometimes is hard to hear for our photographers and really people who are really loving aesthetic. But 99% of engagement happens in your feed, not in your profile. And so you don't need to worry about posting in threes or making the colors match. It's not where people are spending their time. Okay, best practices for stories. So Instagram Stories is the fastest growing feature on the platform. It has hundreds of millions of daily active users, a majority of whom are millennials and Gen Z. I know, for example, for me, every morning when I wake up, I don't scroll through my feed. I actually watch stories first. That's a very common, user habit. So some things to think about: stories are vertical. And so you should be shooting and uploading stuff that feels vertical. So it doesn't feel like you're forcing like your median onto the wrong platform. Quantity, 8 to 11 slides tends to be the sweet spot. But like, it's fine if you do less and if you do more, but it's important to how you're telling the story. That's also fine. It just might affect your completion or drop off rate a little. Selfies. So this kind of goes back to how people really want to know the human behind the account. Straight to camera, kind of selfie style footage, reporter on the ground stuff is really what people want to see. They want to know, who you are, who is the journalist that they want to put their trust in. And the native features of Instagram, right? So I touched a little bit there, like question stickers, there are polls. I know a lot of reporters who use it as part of their reporting process. You can poll your followers or have them ask questions that can inform your coverage, both on and off platform. And take us on the ground with you. You're in a unique position to bring on the ground reporting to people where they're spending most of their time. So talking to camera footage is a really compelling way to draw your audience in, and then also explain a complicated story or add some personality behind that byline. And just something to note, 40% of users who will encounter your content are doing it without audio. So some things that you can do is, if you want to add like a sound on sticker to signal that there's going to be audio that they should turn on. And also from a really important like accessibility point of view, you can type out, your closed captioning just on Instagram, or there's tons of free apps that will auto caption your videos for you, excuse me. And this question is kind of something that I always come back to. What is the most compelling way to tell the story? Instagram, at the end of the day, is a visual platform. But that doesn't necessarily mean exclusively photography, which is how the app definitely started. When you're posting, you should ask yourself, what is the best way to have my audience engage with this story? What do I want them to take away from it? Maybe that's a headline card. Maybe it's, an impactful quote or statistic. Maybe it's promoting the finished product of your piece of journalism, a photo of it in print, in a magazine, in the newspaper, or a screenshot of like the headline and the image on the site. Or maybe it's a window into your reporting process. People love behind the scenes. It doesn't matter in what context. They feel like they're getting kind of a VIP exclusive look into, how something is made. And yeah, thank you so much. We can take questions now.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. We have a few questions here in the live chat for you. So let's start with Vinita. Vinita asks, is one single photograph on Instagram on an important issue considered completely impactful?
Yeah, so this is tough, right? Because I think sometimes a photograph is, a picture tells us is worth 1,000 words. Sometimes an impactful photograph really is the best way to tell the story. But I think what we're learning more and more, especially with journalism, sometimes maybe you don't have a photograph. Maybe you're currently reporting it. Maybe it's a piece of audio journalism. And so I think there's a variety of entry points that you can do. So sometimes like a quote card, really text over images. There are plenty of ways. And Instagram really is rewarding this diversity of media on the platform. I think we haven't seen for a while, only photographs. There's so many things. And so I just always want people to take away that if you don't have a photograph, that doesn't mean, if you don't take photos, that doesn't mean you can't be on Instagram, because there's so many ways to impactfully tell your story that aren't exclusively photography.
Exactly. We'll have another one from Esther. Do you think frequency is the key to success? How often should we be posting on the feed and stories?
That's a really good question. I get that a lot from our reporters at the Times. Instagram isn't a one size fits all platform. Some people, the cadence is once a week. Some people are posting every day. Some people it's less frequently. I will say though, consistency is really key, right? So in building that trust with your audience, people can really pick up on the signal. So it's okay if you're posting only once a week, as long as, you're not posting for 3 months and you fall off the grid. And I will say, like most social media apps, Instagram wants you to be spending a lot of time on the app. So the more you post, the more likely or rapidly you are to maybe build a bigger audience, because the platform is saying, oh, this person is on all the time, I'm going to boost them into the discovery pages. But you need to find that balance for yourself, definitely.
We have here Andrew. Andrew asks, how long does a small team or individual spend on designing an Instagram story for a larger written future?
Yeah, I will say sometimes it takes practice. It used to take me a really long time, and now I feel like I can do it very quickly. A couple things that are really important. I know we're probably seeing more and more, even people on their personal accounts, it'll feel very designed and polished. There are a lot of websites, that will have Instagram story templates for you, which are really great tools. And I encourage you to use those if it's easy to plug into a template. But something that I just want you to know, you don't have to be a designer, graphic designer, a photographer to be good at Instagram. People actually might drop off more if it looks really polished or like an ad, because people will think it's sponsored content, and they're actually might be more likely to skip if it feels too produced when it's coming from a human's account rather than, a brand media account. Something that I has really, really helped me is when I'm thinking about Instagram, it's not an afterthought. It's not only thought of as a promotional lever for the journalism. So if you have a big piece of journalism coming or a project, start thinking about Instagram and Twitter and social media just in general as part of the editorial plan. And then it really helps you just think about it as one more way to tell the story. You know what I mean? In the same way that we're thinking about I'm going to do this Twitter thread. What's the Instagram way that you're going to tell that story? Thinking about it ahead of time will save some time. And also I think sometimes make the journalism better, because you're meeting your audience where they are.
We have here one question from Rosalind. Rosalind says, it's difficult to balance between using Instagram for personal and professional purposes. How to maintain personal cyberspace while promoting myself as a professional journalist?
I feel you 100%. That balance, that line is really, really tricky. I think it kind of depends, right? I know a lot of people who've created kind of 2 accounts, kind of a Finsta, a fake Instagram, or a personal Instagram for whatever it is they want to do, their friend pics, their food pics, or just something that feels separated from their news, so that they have that separation. And other people will blend them. I think it kind of also, sometimes I just log off for the weekend. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'll catch up Sunday night before work. I need a break because Instagram isn't escapism anymore. We're getting our news there, and sometimes that can feel like work. Yeah, it's a tricky question. I can't say that I successfully have found that balance. So I don't know that I have all the answers for that one. But I will say that sometimes you could also just mute certain accounts on it really depends. It's tough. I am on Instagram so often, so many hours of my day. I get alerts on my phone telling me how many hours I spent on Instagram. So I'm not the expert on that one.
Same here. Michelle Ferguson asks, should you only be pointing to your original content? It is different from Twitter in that way, where you can retweet others' content. And he adds, for example, if you were doing research and came across something interesting, could you share it on Insta as a quote or stat?
Totally. That's a really, really good question. And I almost included a slide about this in my presentation. So the nature of like how we share and retweet on Twitter, that's starting to become part of the user behavior on Instagram. You can share other people's work in your stories, which functions essentially the same way as a retweet, right? You share someone's feed post and you post it to your story, and you can add your commentary in the same way that you would quote tweet. When it comes to sharing in feed, I think generally the idea or the understanding for a lot of people is that what's in your feed is coming from your voice. You're the expert. It's your work. And so if you are going to pull like a stat or, an interesting piece of research, I would just like say, think about, is that your beat? Is that your area of expertise? And, people are thinking, oh, I'm following you for X subject matter of news. And so if you're pulling that statistic and giving it that context and attributing it to wherever you find it from, I think that's totally okay. It really depends on kind of what is the nature of your account. But in terms of just general shares and retweets, stories is really the place for that.
We have one more question from Gaura. Gaura asks, hi Sharon, as someone who works for a big media organization as the New York Times, what major difference did you notice in terms of curating for Instagram for a freelancer?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is probably the voice. I think sometimes as journalists, we think we have to be maybe a little bit, objective or detached to make it sound like the voice of the publication that we're writing for often. And on Instagram, people don't want that. Like, people want to hear, do you have any, an interesting anecdote or something from the reporting process, or it doesn't have to feel as polished. We're not really in the age of hyper filtered, very clean photos. Like, a lot of people also, if you're a reporter who's very active on Twitter, I just want to say it's super okay if you did a thread or a tweet that you thought was really good and you screenshot that and, maybe you put it on a background so that it fits perfectly on Instagram and you make that the post. And then you write a little bit more in the caption. That's 100, you don't need to be making a million things. You also have your own job to do. Yeah, it's definitely different. I would say from a big media orgs, we're trying to be a little bit more of the parent, professional, kind of institutionalized voice. And as freelancers, you really have the benefit of doing what Instagram wants, which is being personal and authentic and having a specific point of view, which is really what is the most successful on the platform.
And we have here Leo that asks, what do you think about the live streaming for ongoing story?
So lives they're definitely, it depends on how active you think your audience is. Is there really, do you feel like when they're watching the live, that is the best way to tell the story? I would say for a major breaking news event, if you're on the ground and you want to provide someone with that live, amazing, that, you're in a unique position to offer them that entry into that news moment. However, I will say a lot of things sometimes they do better not as a live, because then you can help the reader or the audience understand what it is that's going on, right? Which is like what we do as journalists. We're there in the action, and then, we make it more accessible and digestible. And so I think for lives, you really just want to be thinking about, if someone's just opening this without any context, are they getting anything? Like, is it impactful? Are they confused? And so just thinking about that. But if you can go live, great. I know a lot of reporters are also doing like conversations, or they'll do a dual live with someone else. And that's really nice because that'll signal to both of your audiences that you're live. And so you're potentially reaching even more people from that other person's audience, which is great.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you so much
Thank you so much for having me.
For talking about Instagram for freelancers. It was great. We learned a lot.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. That was really a great mix of this bigger picture strategic guidance and then some really smart tips. And it's really reassuring to hear that this authentic voice is more important than having the perfect polished photograph. I think that's where we might get hung up on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Labdien! Buenos días, vos días.
Hi, hello.
This is the European Journalism Center.
Since 1992,
we've been helping journalists all over Europe.
Now we ask for your support.
Join the European Journalism Collective.
And with a small donation, you can help us remain independent and sustainable.
So we can continue supporting journalists just like you.
And do even more.
And do even more.
and do even more.